first, how about you introduce yourself and the APF Emerging Fellow Program and describe how you became an Emerging Fellow?
My name is Zabrina Epps. I live in the United States. I have been a member of APF. I actually became a student member while I was working on my PhD at Fielding Graduate University. I joined APF as a student while I was working on my dissertation, and part of my framework for the dissertation was futures studies and futures thinking. My program is in human and organizational systems, and I'm very interested in education systems at large, not just K-12, not just higher ed, but especially recently with all the reforms are becoming more and more narrow and providing less and less opportunities to students who have been marginalized, particularly within the culture of the United States. At looking ahead, because there's no way that the United States is going to be prosperous by not educating, what's now becoming a minority majority in our country. I came across Teach the Future by Peter Bishop, Richard Slaughter, Sohail Ainatullah, who actually ended up being the external examiner for my dissertation committee. So I was very fortunate in that. And so once I completed my studies, I saw the opportunity to become an emerging fellow and applied. And the questions were really hard. The one question in particular, because I had no background in this area, was about the war, the Russian aggression on Ukraine.
Yeah, the question were not easy at all,
No.
but they definitely opened our eyes on like other aspects of foresight that maybe we need to develop in and create more of an understanding of. So you touched on what motivated you to apply, but how did you learn about the program?
Once you get on the listservs, you hear about the different programs and the events. And as a result of the events, I met people, folks like Zan Chandler, and in having a conversation either with her, with a couple of folks actually, because I expressed my desire to get more mentoring and to learn more from, the professional futurists who were already established. And so Zan or someone asked me, well, are you familiar with the Emerging Fellows Program? And I said, no. And she mentioned that Patricia Lustig, who runs the program, is in fact gearing up to, to accept applications for a new cohort. And so everything just really aligned right at that point. And so I reached out to Patricia. She said that she indeed was doing that preparation and to keep an eye out. And probably a month or two later, it came on the listserv.
Yeah, that's really important for emerging futurists to keep close to communities and to volunteer and to kind of connect with other people, because that's how you know about these opportunities. You mentioned you had a challenge with the question. Are there any other challenges you encountered throughout the application process, and how did you overcome them?
I think that was the most challenging. I've applied to different fellowships before, so I pretty much have gotten used to, most of these applications are not the same, but similar in terms of format. When I got to that question about such a large problem in the world, I thought to myself, well, I'm going to have to educate myself on how this even got to this place. And I have to say, like, world affairs has not been things that I read about. And so I didn't really understand where a lot of that conflict had come from, and where the aggressions were and that kinds of things. Once I started doing some research, then it started to click in terms of previous news reports that I had seen. It helped me to understand. So in terms of anything else about I think you just have to be very clear about even if you're not sure exactly what you want to work on, you have to be clear about what you want out of um, going into the futures field. This is not an easy field by any stretch of the imagination. You have to be really clear about, or at least have a semi-clear about the type of contribution that you want to make.
Absolutely. And now that you're a fellow, I'm recording this and we're 6 months, almost 8 months into the program.
Mhm.
Describe the resources and the support available to you as an emerging fellow. How did that enhance your experience?
It's almost like having, like a special card, how you get that special American Express. Not that you have to go around the proper channels, but people get excited when you tell them that you're an emerging fellow. And I think that was a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting it. Who have come to speak with us have all mentioned how thrilled they are to take the time to speak with the emerging fellows. And um and so yeah, I was really, it's been a lot of resources just in terms of people being very open and available to all of us. If we have a question, if we want to talk through a particular method, I feel really comfortable reaching out to Sohail. I feel really comfortable reaching out to Patricia or anyone else. Stephen DuPont, who is the editor of Compass, which is APF's magazine, he's always looking for input. He reaches out to the fellows often to get, our perspectives and our articles. Also, part of the program is that we are on schedule to produce blog posts on a regular basis. So it keeps you writing, which is a good way to think about what you want to contribute to the futures field.
There are so many resources for us as emerging fellows to learn about the future and to enhance our skill set. And that leads me to the next question. Explain how the program contributed to your professional development as an emerging futurist, and to support your career goals in the field of strategic foresight.
Absolutely. I love the monthly meetings with the cohort ahead of us, facilitating our learning as we go through the foresight, strategic foresight. This book has been so enlightening, and the way that Patricia writes is, number one, very conversational. She draws you in. She's very transparent about her experience as a new professional futurist and foresight practitioner. As you were reading about, maybe even some of the faux pas that she experienced in the beginning, or some of the resistance that she has experienced with clients. And so, literally, just last week, I completely experienced very similar to what she described in her experience in this book. So, as I'm thinking through my potential workshops or sessions that I would facilitate, I have right at my hands, this kind of handbook. This book, although it's not a large, it's not 100, it's not at 400 pages, but it's chock full of, it even has case studies of actual, companies and the thinking of their leaders and those who in either the foresight or the lack thereof, and what the outcome was. So yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the questions compelled you to explore um, certain areas of knowledge that maybe you weren't as exposed to before.
Hmm.
So for this question, explain how the program impacted your understanding of the field and your role as a professional futurist.
I mean, I'm still learning that. Like you said, we're between 6 and 8 months in at this point. One of the opportunities recently was, like I said, I live in the United States. They've been having these different gatherings, and there was one in Washington, D.C., that I had the opportunity to attend. And I mentioned that I was an emerging fellow and also had an opportunity to volunteer, which helped with some of the costs. So that was really, that was really helpful. But the subject matter was on the future of AI and governance topic areas, talking about, near-term AI, long-term AI, and the capacity, the which almost seems at this point infinite capacity, and what the implications of that would mean with regard to ethics, with regard to privacy, with regard to safety, and security of your information. That opportunity to understand AI. Another presentation that we went to, talked about AI in different spaces, like within the food industry, within design, within medicine, and longevity, creating more health and longevity among us as humans, and also in terms of environment, to try to bring things back to equilibrium. So it was very eye-opening and incredibly enlightening. And also then to talk about governance and how different countries and leadership around the world, how they are responding and not responding to AI, which is particularly of interest to me as a US citizen.
Yeah, one thing about the community is having those reoccurrent or periodical meetings. You get to meet other people and you get to learn from them and learn from their expertise, because they have been building their knowledge around certain disciplines, and just being around them and hearing the latest advancements is such a wonderful privilege for us as emerging fellows. So this is my last question, but do you have any last words, anything that's worth mentioning that could be of interest to future applicants?
If you are interested in the field of futures and foresight, you should apply to be an emerging fellow, point blank. The people are amazing. People are excited. So you have an opportunity to make a key contribution. I remember when I was working on my dissertation, seeing the names of folks who were also working on their studies, either directly in foresight program like the Houston program, or other programs around the world. Like I said, I was outside of the field, but found my way into the field. Even if you didn't come through a foresight program, or you're not currently enrolled in a foresight or futures program, if you're interested and you are committed to doing the work, then apply. If because one of the things that's very important, I think, for people to remind ourselves of, you come from a different discipline, that only broadens the perspective of how we do our work, which ultimately, and it also means that it'll broaden the reach of where futures thinking and strategic foresight.
Well, thank you so much, Zabrina, for your time and for sharing your experience. And I'm pretty sure that future applicants will find your experience very valuable and helpful in their application process, and to consider applying for the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you.